Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with me. Today, we're going to be looking at something that I know a lot of you have asked about,
Yeah,
and that is improving your English listening skills.
absolutely.
But don't worry, we are not going to be opening a textbook or anything like that.
No textbooks here.
We're going straight to the source material, and that is a guide from the Real Life English podcast with 20 actionable tips.
Wow, 20.
20 to make you a better listener right from your couch.
Right from your couch. That's the best.
So you can, really improve your English listening skills without having to go anywhere.
Yeah, and it's really designed for busy people you know.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking, I don't have time for this,
Yeah.
trust me, you do.
You do. We'll get to some of those tips a little bit later.
Yeah.
But first I want to ask you this. How many times have you heard a song?
Okay.
And then later you found yourself singing along to it without even realizing that you knew all the lyrics?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
All the time, right.
It happens all the time.
And it's because our brains are constantly absorbing language,
Right.
even passively.
And passively.
So this guide, one of the things that it really emphasizes is this idea of background English.
Okay.
So surrounding yourself with English content, even when you're not actively sitting down and studying.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So you're saying
Yeah.
I could have an English podcast on.
Yeah, or a radio show, or,
Yeah.
while I'm doing something else, like cooking dinner
Yeah,
or
exactly.
folding laundry,
It might seem like you're not paying attention, but your brain is actually still working in the background.
picking up those sounds.
Yes, and the rhythms.
Yeah.
Pronunciation, common phrases.
I mean, that's really a relief to hear.
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes I feel like if I'm not sitting down and actively, focusing on every single word, then I'm not really learning.
I know.
But this guide is saying, no, it's okay to have that background English.
Yeah, just kind of let it
Let it soak in.
soak in. Yeah.
But of course, there are going to be times when we want to actively, do some listening practice.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So the guide also talks about active listening techniques.
Uh-huh.
And one that it recommends is something called pause and repeat.
Pause and repeat.
Okay?
Have you heard of this?
I have heard of this, yeah.
So it's basically you listen to a short audio clip in English.
Okay.
You pause it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you repeat what you heard,
Okay.
focusing on
Pronunciation.
pronunciation
Yeah.
and getting that sentence structure correct.
So it's like going to the gym for your ears.
Yes. It's like a workout
Yeah.
for your ears and your tongue.
Absolutely.
So for example, let's say you were listening to a news report and you heard the phrase,
Okay.
the economy experienced a significant downturn.
Oh.
Instead of just letting it wash over you, you would pause,
Right.
break down that sentence, and try to repeat it
Got it.
with the same intonation and clarity.
Wow. Yeah.
So you're really embodying that language.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm already feeling a little bit more motivated
Yeah.
to work on my listening skills. But
Yeah.
what if I'm, watching a movie
Right.
and I'm struggling to keep up with the dialogue?
That happens to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, does this guide have any advice for that kind of situation?
It does. And it might seem counterintuitive,
Okay.
but it actually suggests using subtitles strategically.
Strategically.
Yes. So
Right.
how?
How so? Instead of immediately jumping to English subtitles,
Okay.
start with subtitles in your native language.
Oh.
So that helps you to just understand the general plot, what's going on.
Right.
Then on your second viewing, switch to English subtitles.
Oh, okay.
And you'll find yourself recognizing words and phrases that you already saw in your native language.
So you're kind of training your brain to connect the written form
Yes.
with the spoken form.
Right.
I actually tried something similar with music. I started reading the lyrics while I was listening to English songs.
Oh, that's great.
And it really helped me to understand the pronunciation,
Yeah.
some of the slang that's used in
Oh.
casual conversation.
Yeah.
So is that something that this guide touches on as well?
You're ahead of the game. The guide emphasizes the power of music for learning English,
Really?
especially for picking up those informal phrases and getting a feel for the natural rhythm of the language.
It's fun too.
Yes.
I mean, who doesn't love discovering new music?
Right.
But what about those times when I'm not watching TV or listening to music?
Okay.
Are there ways to practice English listening in those little pockets of downtime
Mm-hmm.
throughout the day?
There are. And this is where technology comes in.
Okay.
So the guide recommends exploring language learning apps.
Okay.
And there are some amazing ones out there.
I know I've heard of a few,
Yeah,
but I get a little bit overwhelmed.
I know. There's so many.
There's so many.
Yeah.
What are some that this guide specifically recommends?
It highlights 3 popular ones.
Okay.
Duolingo,
Okay.
LingQ, and LSA.
Okay, so 3 very different
Yes, each one offers a unique approach.
Yeah.
So,
approaches.
yes, Duolingo is great for gamified learning.
Gamified. Oh.
Yeah, so you earn points.
Oh, fun.
You unlock new levels as you progress.
It's like a game.
It is a game.
Yeah.
It's very fun, and they do a great job teaching vocabulary through visual associations and interactive exercises.
So you're not just like looking at a list of words.
Yeah.
You're actually like interacting with
Yeah.
the words.
Yeah.
What about LingQ?
LingQ is all about immersion through authentic content.
Okay.
So they provide a vast library of articles, podcasts, even audiobooks,
Yeah.
all transcribed and translated. So you can click on words you don't know to get definitions.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yes, very helpful, and see them used in different contexts.
So it's perfect for people who want to learn through real world examples.
Exactly. Rather than just memorizing word lists.
What was that last one again?
The LSA.
LSA.
And this one is specifically designed for pronunciation improvement.
Oh, so this is like really helping you to
Fine-tune it.
fine-tune your
Accents and intonation.
Okay.
And it uses AI technology to analyze your speech and give you personalized feedback.
I mean, that sounds incredibly helpful.
It is.
Especially for someone like me who sometimes struggles with certain sounds.
I understand.
But what if I don't want to just rely on apps?
Okay.
Are there any other tech tools
Yeah.
that this guide suggests?
Definitely, you can use dictation software to check your pronunciation.
Dictation software. Okay.
So you just speak into the microphone
Okay.
and see if the computer transcribes your words correctly.
So it's like having a digital pronunciation coach
It is.
right on your computer.
Right on your computer, yes.
That's such a simple yet brilliant idea.
I know, right?
I mean, it's amazing how technology can be
Yes.
such a valuable asset for language learning.
It is.
But I also want to make sure I'm not just listening passively.
Right.
Right. Are there any techniques that this guide recommends for like really engaging with the material and like making sure that it sticks?
There are. And one of the most effective strategies is active note-taking.
Note-taking.
Yes.
I usually think of note-taking as something that I do for like lectures
Lectures or meetings.
or meetings.
Right.
But how does it apply to listening practice?
Think of it as a way to train your brain to extract key information and organize your thoughts.
Okay.
So while you're listening to a podcast, for example, jot down the main points.
Okay.
Any new vocabulary words or even just questions that come to mind.
Yeah.
This just forces you to actively process the information.
Right. Instead of just letting it go in one ear and out the other.
Exactly. You're having a conversation with material.
I like that.
Yes.
So you're not just a
Passive
observer.
Yeah.
You're actually like interacting with it.
Yeah.
But speaking of conversations,
Okay.
what about like practicing spoken English
Yeah.
alongside listening?
Yeah.
Does this guide have any tips for that?
It does. And it encourages you to think of it as real life simulations.
Real life simulations. Okay.
So imagine you're at a restaurant
Mm-hmm.
and you want to order food.
Okay.
Instead of just thinking about it in your head,
Yeah.
actually speak the sentences out loud,
Okay.
practicing what you would say to the waiter.
So I could be like, I'd like to start with the soup, please.
Exactly.
Or, you know, could I also get a glass of water?
Yes, and the more you practice these common scenarios, the more confident you'll feel
Right.
when you encounter them in real life.
You'll be prepared.
You'll be prepared. You can even record yourself speaking and compare it to native speakers
Oh, okay.
to identify areas where you can improve.
So you're saying I should be like talking to myself in English?
Yes,
I mean, it sounds a little crazy,
I know.
but I guess it makes sense.
It does.
And I can do that
in the privacy
in the privacy of my own home
of your own home. Yeah.
without feeling self-conscious.
Right. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
You're creating a safe space to experiment and make mistakes without judgment.
And this guide is full of these practical tips that you can implement immediately.
Yes.
It even suggests trying something called shadowing.
Shadowing.
Have you ever heard of that? Shadowing. That sounds intriguing.
Mm.
What exactly does that involve?
So it's a technique where you listen to a native English speaker
Okay.
and you try to repeat what they're saying simultaneously.
Simultaneously.
Yeah, like mimicking their tone, their speed, even their intonation.
So it's not just about understanding the words, but it's about like embodying the way
Embodying
that they speak.
Exactly.
That sounds like a real challenge,
It is a challenge.
but also incredibly beneficial.
It is, think of it as an acting exercise for your voice.
Okay.
It helps you internalize those subtle nuances of pronunciation and delivery, and it makes you sound more natural and fluent.
I can see how that would be like a game changer,
It is.
especially when it comes to sounding more like a native speaker.
Yes.
The guide also mentions online role-playing for practicing specific scenarios, right?
Yes, and this ties in nicely with the real-life simulations concept we talked about earlier.
Okay.
So online role-playing allows you to practice conversations in a controlled environment
Okay.
with other learners or even native speakers.
Oh, wow.
And you can choose from various scenarios like ordering food at a restaurant,
Okay.
asking for directions, or even having a job interview.
So it's like a dress rehearsal
It is.
for real-life conversation.
Yes, takes away that fear of making mistakes
Right.
and allows you to build confidence before facing those situations in the real world.
That's brilliant. Okay, so we've talked about, practicing with apps.
Yeah.
We've talked about shadowing.
Yes.
But let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
This guide also emphasizes the importance of listening to different English accents.
Yes, very important.
Why is that so crucial?
Well, think about it. English is a global language spoken in countless countries
Right.
with varying accents and dialects.
Yeah.
So if you only ever listen to one type of accent, you'll likely struggle when you encounter someone with a different pronunciation.
Or intonation.
Or intonation, exactly.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I've definitely experienced that before.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I remember watching a British TV show
Okay.
and, feeling completely lost at times.
Yeah,
Because I was so used to American English.
exactly.
Yeah.
So by exposing yourself to a variety of accents, British, American, Australian, Irish, South African, Indian, and so on,
Wow, so many.
you're essentially training your ears to decode different ways of speaking English.
So it's like expanding your listening vocabulary.
It is.
It's not just about learning new words, but it's about understanding how those words can sound different
Exactly.
depending on the speaker's background or region.
Exactly. It makes you a more versatile and adaptable listener overall.
Do you have any personal experiences with encountering an unfamiliar accent?
Well, definitely.
And how you kind of overcame that challenge?
I once attended a conference in Scotland,
Okay.
and at first had a really hard time understanding the local speakers.
Yeah.
The rhythm and intonation of their speech was so different from what I was used to.
Right.
But after a few days of being immersed in that environment,
Uh-huh.
my ear adjusted and I was able to follow along much better.
So it just takes time
It does.
and exposure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's encouraging to hear because it shows that our brains are remarkably adaptable.
They are.
Right. And they can learn to decipher
Yeah.
even the most unfamiliar accents
Absolutely.
with enough exposure.
Yes.
So how can we actively seek out these different accents?
Well, the guide suggests exploring documentaries and news broadcasts as excellent sources of formal English.
Why those particular genres?
Well, documentaries and news programs often feature speakers from diverse backgrounds,
Oh, okay.
so you're likely to hear a variety of accents.
That makes sense.
Plus, they tend to use clear, well-articulated language,
Right.
which is ideal for studying pronunciation and grammar.
And you're learning about interesting topics along the way.
Exactly, it's a win-win.
What about resources specifically designed for English language learners?
Okay.
Does this guide mention any of those?
It does. It highly recommends checking out podcasts specifically created for English learners.
Okay.
These podcasts often feature hosts who speak at a slower pace.
Okay.
They explain idioms and expressions.
Multiple.
Yes.
Hmm.
And they provide cultural context.
So they're like having a personal tutor
They are
in your pocket.
right in your pocket. And with the vast number of podcasts available these days,
Yeah.
you're sure to find something that aligns with your interests.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From passive listening to active practice,
Yes.
from tech tools to real-life simulations.
Yes.
But I'm curious, what about the social aspect of learning?
Okay.
Does this guide address that at all?
It absolutely does. In fact, it emphasizes the importance of social interaction for language acquisition.
So it's not just about studying alone in your room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's where you get to put all your skills into practice,
Okay.
receive feedback, and learn from others in a real-world setting.
So the guide suggests exploring online language communities.
Yes.
Like forums or social media groups dedicated to English learning.
Exactly.
Okay.
These platforms offer a supportive environment where you can connect with fellow learners from around the world,
Yeah.
share tips and resources, and even practice your speaking and listening skills.
I love that idea
Yeah.
because it creates a sense of community
Yes,
and shared purpose.
it does.
It can be so motivating to learn alongside others others who are on the
chunks.
same journey.
Absolutely.
The guide also mentions language exchange programs, right?
Yes, and this is a fantastic way to get immersive practice with a native speaker.
Okay.
So you partner with someone who wants to learn your language,
Yeah.
and you both get the benefit of practicing your target language in a real-world setting.
It's a win-win situation.
It is.
You get to help someone else while simultaneously improving your own language skills.
Exactly. And who knows, you might even form lasting friendships along the way.
I love that, and that's what makes language learning so rewarding.
It is.
It's not just about acquiring a skill.
Right.
It's about connecting with people and cultures
Yes.
and ideas from around the world.
I like that.
So we've covered a wide range of tips and strategies today,
We have.
from setting the stage for effective listening
Yes.
to leveraging technology and embracing the social aspects of language learning.
Absolutely. And the key takeaway is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
It's about finding what works best for you, experimenting with different techniques, and making the learning process enjoyable.
I love that it's all about finding your own rhythm and making learning a joyful experience.
Yes. Make it fun.
But before we wrap up, I want to touch on one more thing that this guide emphasizes, and that is consistency.
Ah, yes. The cornerstone of any successful learning endeavor.
It's not about cramming everything
No.
into a few marathon sessions,
Right.
but it's about making small, consistent efforts
Over time.
over time. So
Yeah.
even dedicating just 15 minutes a day
Yeah.
to listening practice can make a significant difference in the long run.
Absolutely. Think of it like exercise.
Okay,
You wouldn't expect to run a marathon overnight,
right.
but by running a few miles each day,
Uh-huh.
you gradually build up your stamina and endurance.
Okay,
The same principle applies to language learning.
that's a great analogy.
By listening to English consistently, even in short bursts, you're training your ears, expanding your vocabulary, and strengthening your comprehension skills over time.
That makes me feel much less overwhelmed. Because
Good.
it's not about like making these drastic changes overnight.
No.
It's about just making small, sustainable habits
Exactly.
that will ultimately lead to fluency.
Yes, and remember, you don't have to do everything at once.
Right.
Choose a few tips that resonate with you, implement them into your daily routine, and then gradually add more as you feel more comfortable.
That's excellent advice. So, as we approach the end of this deep dive,
Yeah.
what would you say are some of the most important takeaways for our listeners to remember?
I mean, we've really talked about a lot of different things, right?
Have.
But I think if I had to sum it up, I'd say the most important things are consistency, variety, and active engagement.
Yeah, I think those are really fantastic points to highlight. Consistency, even in small doses, really helps to build momentum.
It does.
Variety keeps things interesting and it caters to different learning styles.
Right. Different things work for different people.
Exactly. And then active engagement makes sure that you're not just passively absorbing the information,
Right.
but you're really interacting with it and making it your own.
Exactly. And don't forget to have fun.
Yes,
Learning a language should be an enjoyable experience.
it should be.
So if you're finding yourself getting bored or frustrated,
Yeah.
switch things up.
Yeah, try a new app.
Right. Explore a different podcast.
Connect with a language partner.
Yes, have a conversation.
I mean, it's all about finding what sparks your interest and keeps you motivated.
Absolutely.
Speaking of motivation, this guide has definitely given me a fresh perspective on how to approach English listening. What about you? What really resonated with you the most from all of these tips?
I think for me, it was just the reminder that even passive listening can be so beneficial.
Yeah.
We often feel like we're not really learning unless we're actively studying grammar rules or memorizing vocabulary.
Right.
But simply surrounding yourself with English, even in the background, can make a big difference in the long run.
It's like planting seeds
It is.
in your subconscious mind.
Yes, and they'll eventually sprout and blossom.
I love that analogy because it takes the pressure off
Yeah.
of feeling like we need to be on all the time.
Exactly.
Right. Sometimes just letting the language wash over you can
Yeah.
be incredibly effective. But of course, there are times when we do need to shift gears
Right.
and engage a little bit more actively.
Yes, and that's where those active listening techniques come in.
Right. Pausing and repeating note-taking shadowing.
Yes.
I mean, these strategies really help us to move from that passive absorption
Right.
to active participation.
Yes.
And they challenge us to really grapple with the language,
Yeah.
dissect its nuances and make it our own.
Absolutely.
I'm already picturing myself trying out these techniques.
Good.
I'm especially intrigued by shadowing.
Yes.
I think it sounds like a really powerful way to not only improve comprehension,
Yeah.
but also to develop a more authentic accent and intonation.
It is, and it's a fun way to challenge yourself,
Yeah,
to step outside of your comfort zone.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
think about it. What if you set a goal to try one new listening technique each week?
Yeah,
Imagine how much progress you could make in just a month.
that's a great challenge.
It is, and it's something that everyone listening can do, regardless of your current level of English.
Absolutely.
It's all about taking those small, consistent steps
Yeah.
and celebrating the victories along the way.
Right.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I just want to remind everyone that this is just the beginning of your listening journey.
It is.
There's a whole world of English content out there
Yes.
waiting to be explored.
Waiting to be explained.
From podcasts and audiobooks to movies and TV shows,
Right.
from online communities to real-life conversations.
Yes.
So go forth, dear listeners, and embrace the power of listening. Experiment, have fun, and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Absolutely.
Because every stumble is an opportunity to learn and grow.
It is.
Until next time, keep those ears open and those learning spirits high.